Let me show you something nobody talks about. Let me show you the map. Because when you plot all 6 cases geographically, something becomes undeniable, something impossible to ignore. The man from Taured, Tokyo Haneda Airport, Japan, latitude 35.5 degrees north, longitude 139.8 degrees east, 1954, Flight 19, Bermuda Triangle, Atlantic Ocean, latitude 25 to 30 degrees north, longitude 70 degrees to 75 degrees west, 1945. The Mary Celeste, found between Azores and Portugal, mid-Atlantic, latitude 38 degrees north, longitude 17 degrees west, 1872. Dyatlov Pass, Ural Mountains, Russia, latitude 61.8 degrees north, longitude 59.5 degrees east, 1959. D.B. Cooper, Pacific Northwest, Washington State, latitude 45.6 degrees north, longitude 122.5 degrees west, 1971. Bermuda Triangle, same location, multiple disappearances, 1918 to present day. Look at these locations. Look at them carefully. What do they have in common? They're not random. They're not scattered evenly across the globe. They cluster. They concentrate. 3 of them are in ocean or coastal areas with strong currents. 2 are in mountainous regions with unique geological formations. 1 is near a major fault line. All of them have significant electromagnetic activity, either natural or man-made. All of them have documented geomagnetic anomalies, compass variations, magnetic field distortions, unusual readings, and all of them have histories, long histories, of strange occurrences, of disappearances, of reality seeming wrong. These aren't isolated incidents. These are repeating patterns in specific locations with specific characteristics. Let me show you the historical pattern, because these locations have been problematic for centuries, not just decades, centuries. The Bermuda Triangle, Christopher Columbus sailed through it in 1492. He documented in his ship's log that his compass was spinning wildly, pointing wrong directions. His crew was terrified. They saw lights in the sky, strange lights, moving, dancing. Columbus wrote about it, described it, called it disturbing. That was 1492, over 500 years ago, and it's still happening. The Mary Celeste area, mid-Atlantic Portuguese sailors called it Mar Morto, the Dead Sea, for hundreds of years. Ships would vanish there. Crews would disappear. Vessels found abandoned. No explanation. No survivors. Long before 1872, long before the Mary Celeste, the pattern was established. The location was known. Sailors avoided it when possible. Dyatlov Pass, Kolachakal, Dead Mountain. The Mansi people have called it that for generations, centuries. How many centuries? They don't know. Their oral history goes back further than they can track, and it's always been Dead Mountain, always been a place to avoid, always been a place where strange things happen, where people disappear, where lights appear in the sky, where reality seems wrong. The Mansi knew. They warned the Dyatlov group, told them not to camp there, told them it was dangerous. The group didn't listen. They didn't believe in superstition. They believed in science. They died anyway. Tokyo. Japan sits on the ring of fire, massive tectonic activity, earthquakes, volcanic activity, geomagnetic disturbances constantly, and Japan has documented strange occurrences for centuries, mysterious disappearances, people vanishing, reality glitches, written in historical texts. Buddhist monks documented them, called them Ma no Suna, demon sand, places where people sink into nothing, vanish completely. The Pacific Northwest where D.B. Cooper jumped. Native American tribes have legends, the Yakama, the Salish. Stories about certain areas where people disappear, where the sky opens, where spirits take people, where you can walk between worlds. These aren't modern stories. These are ancient, passed down for generations, before Europeans arrived, before planes existed, before D.B. Cooper. The locations knew. The pattern was established. People just didn't listen. So what do all these locations share? What makes them special? What creates the conditions for dimensional crossing? Let me break it down. Feature 1. Geomagnetic anomalies. Every single location has documented variations in Earth's magnetic field, compass deviations, unusual readings. The Bermuda Triangle is one of 2 places on Earth where true north and magnetic north align. That creates confusion, makes navigation difficult, but it also creates something else, a unique field configuration. Dyatlov Pass is in the Ural Mountains, ancient mountains rich in iron ore, magnetic minerals, creating local field distortions. Tokyo sits on multiple fault lines. Tectonic stress creates piezoelectric effects, generates electromagnetic fields. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge runs near where the Mary Celeste was found. Underwater volcanic activity, magnetic variations. The Pacific Northwest has volcanic activity. Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, geothermal energy, creating fields. Feature 2, strong natural energy flows, ocean currents. The Gulf Stream runs through the Bermuda Triangle, one of the strongest ocean currents on Earth. Massive water movement, kinetic energy. The Kuroshio Current runs near Japan, another major current. The Mid-Atlantic has convergence zones, where currents meet, where energy concentrates. Mountain ranges, the Urals, the Cascades. These aren't just rocks, they're energy channels. Geological stress, tectonic forces, constant pressure, constant movement, creating energy. Rivers. The Columbia River, near where Cooper jumped, major water flow. The rivers near Dyatlov Pass. Moving water generates electromagnetic fields, creates charge separation, builds energy. Feature 3, atmospheric conditions. All these locations have unusual weather patterns. The Bermuda Triangle has sudden storms, waterspouts, unusual cloud formations. Pilots report electronic fog, green fog, clouds that seem to surround aircraft. Dyatlov Pass had extreme weather, but also reported atmospheric phenomena, lights in the sky, atmospheric electricity. The Pacific Northwest has unique weather, rain, clouds, electromagnetic activity from storms. Japan has typhoons, extreme atmospheric events, and lightning, lots of lightning. Lightning generates massive electromagnetic pulses, affects reality at quantum scales. Comment right now if you're starting to see the pattern, because these aren't random features. These are specific conditions. Conditions that create something that makes dimensional crossing possible. Now let me show you the science, the physics that explains this. Because this isn't speculation, this isn't pseudoscience, this is real quantum mechanics. Published, peer-reviewed, accepted by mainstream physics. In 1957, physicist Hugh Everett III proposed the many-worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Princeton University, his doctoral thesis. The idea is simple but profound. Every quantum event creates a split, a branching. One reality becomes 2 or more. Every time a particle's wave function collapses, every time a quantum decision is made, reality branches, creates parallel universes, parallel dimensions, where every possible outcome happens. You exist in all of them. Different versions of you, making different choices, living different lives. This isn't fringe theory. This is taught in universities. MIT, Stanford, Oxford, Cambridge. Physicists take it seriously. Why? Because the math works. The predictions match experiments. The theory explains quantum phenomena that other interpretations struggle with. But here's what Everett didn't address. Here's what nobody talked about until recently. If multiple realities exist, if parallel dimensions are real, what separates them? What keeps them apart? What prevents them from overlapping? And the answer is energy barriers, quantum field boundaries, dimensional walls, like membranes, separating realities, keeping them distinct, keeping them stable. But membranes aren't perfect. They can weaken. They can tear. They can become permeable under specific conditions with specific energy configurations. In 2001, physicist Lisa Randall at Harvard proposed that extra dimensions exist, not just theoretical, actually exist. She published papers showing that gravity might leak between dimensions, that what we perceive as weak gravity might be strong gravity leaking through from a nearby dimension. Her work is respected, cited, used in ongoing research. And if gravity can leak between dimensions, what else can? Energy? Matter? Information? People? In 2016, researchers at Oak Ridge National Laboratory detected neutron oscillations, neutrons that seem to appear and disappear, switching between observable states. They call them ghost particles, neutrons that might be crossing dimensional boundaries, appearing in our dimension, then disappearing to another, published in Physical Review Letters. Peer-reviewed. Real science, real evidence that dimensional crossing is possible at the particle level. So here's the question. If particles can cross, why not larger objects? Why not molecules? Why not atoms arranged into complex structures? Why not people? The physics allows it. The math supports it. The experiments suggest it. What we need are the right conditions, the right energy configuration, the right quantum field alignment. And that's what these locations provide. That's what makes them special. Let me show you the electromagnetic component, because this is critical. This is what creates the conditions. Strong electromagnetic fields affect quantum behavior. This is established physics. Double-slit experiments show it. Quantum entanglement experiments show it. Electromagnetic fields influence wave function collapse. They affect probability distributions. They change quantum outcomes. Now scale that up. What happens when you have massive electromagnetic fields? Natural fields from geomagnetic anomalies, or artificial fields from human technology? They affect reality at quantum scales. They influence dimensional boundaries. They create stress on the membrane separating realities. The Philadelphia experiment. Let me tell you the full story, because this is documented. This is real, and this is what proved the Navy knows about dimensional crossing. October 28, 1943. Philadelphia Naval Shipyard at the USS Eldridge, a Cannon-class destroyer escort. The Navy was testing degaussing technology. The official story: making ships invisible to magnetic mines using electromagnetic coils wrapped around the hull, creating a field that would neutralize the ship's magnetic signature. That's the official story. But witnesses say something else. They say the experiment went beyond degaussing. They say the Navy was testing something more, something classified, something that would change naval warfare forever. Carl Allen, also known as Carlos Allende, merchant mariner. He was aboard the SS Andrew Furuseth in Philadelphia Harbor that day. He witnessed the experiment, and he documented it. In 1955, he wrote letters to Morris K. Jessup, astronomer, UFO researcher, author, describing what he saw in detail. The USS Eldridge was docked, crew aboard, equipment activated, massive generators, electromagnetic coils energized, strong fields, very strong. And then something happened. A green fog appeared, surrounded the ship. Witnesses describe it as glowing, pulsing, unnatural. The fog got thicker, denser, and then the ship started to fade, became translucent. You could see through it, see through the hull, see through the superstructure like it was becoming a ghost, and then it vanished, completely gone. Not there. Empty space where a destroyer used to be. Hit that like button if the Navy accidentally discovering dimensional technology in 1943 explains everything that came after. Because it does. Witnesses at Norfolk Naval Base, Virginia, 200 miles away, reported seeing the Eldridge appear there, materialize out of nothing, in the harbor, crew visible on deck, looking confused, disoriented, terrified. The ship stayed for several minutes, then vanished again, disappeared, and then reappeared in Philadelphia. Back where it started, the crew was affected severely. Some sailors were embedded in the metal of the ship, their bodies fused with the steel bulkheads. Molecular-level integration. Their atoms merged with the ship's atoms during the crossing. They died, horribly, screaming. Others went insane, started babbling about seeing other places, other times, other versions of the ship, other versions of themselves. They saw the branching, saw multiple realities simultaneously. Human brains can't process that, can't handle perceiving multiple timelines at once. They broke, psychologically shattered. Some were institutionalized, some committed suicide, some vanished during the experiment, never seen again. 14 men, according to Allen's letters, gone, not dead, not injured, just gone, crossed through, went to another dimension, couldn't get back. The Navy shut it down immediately, classified everything, interviewed all witnesses, took their testimony, then ordered them to never speak about it, threatened court-martial, threatened prosecution, sealed all documentation. When Carl Allen wrote his letters in 1955, the Navy sent investigators, Office of Naval Research. They interviewed him extensively, took detailed notes, then classified those too. When Morris Jessup received the letters, he sent them to the ONR, thought they'd be interested. They were very interested. They reprinted Jessup's book, The Case for the UFO, with Allen's letters annotated in the margins, but only for internal Navy distribution, classified, not for public release. Why? What were they hiding? What did they know? In 1994, under Freedom of Information Act requests, some documents were released, heavily redacted, but enough to confirm the Eldridge was in Philadelphia on October 28, 1943. Enough to confirm electromagnetic experiments were conducted. Enough to confirm crew members reported unusual experiences. Not enough to prove dimensional crossing, but enough to suggest something happened. Something the Navy didn't want public, something they're still hiding. Now let me take you back through all 6 cases, but this time with the framework, with the understanding, with the science. Let me show you how dimensional weak spots explain everything, every impossible detail, every paradox, every mystery. The man from Taured first, because this is the purest example, the clearest case of dimensional crossing. July 1954, Tokyo Haneda Airport. A man arrives on a flight from Europe, goes through customs, presents his passport from Taured, a country that doesn't exist, Not in our dimension. Customs officials are confused. Check their maps. Check their records. No such country. The man insists, becomes agitated, says Taured has existed for 1,000 years, shows them the location, between France and Spain, where Andorra is. But in his dimension, it's not Andorra, it's Taured. His passport has stamps, multiple stamps, from countries that exist: Japan, France, Spain, Switzerland, issued by Taured, official stamps, real ink, real paper, physical documentation from another dimension. The man has other documents: driver's license from Taured, business cards, checkbook from a Taured bank, all physical, all real, all impossible in our dimension, but real in his. He crossed through, accidentally. The flight he was on passed through a weak spot, a dimensional boundary collapse, probably over the Pacific, or during approach to Tokyo's strong electromagnetic activity, tectonic stress, airport radar, all creating the conditions, and he crossed. Without realizing, the plane didn't cross, just him. Maybe he was standing moving to the bathroom in the wrong position at the wrong time, and he slipped through, crossed dimensions, arrived in our Tokyo instead of his Tokyo. Similar, but different Andorra instead of Taured. The company he works for doesn't exist here. The hotel he booked doesn't have his reservation, because he made it in another dimension. Nothing matches. Nothing makes sense. Reality is wrong, from his perspective. They put him in a hotel room, guards at the door, window too high to escape, locked door. He's trapped. They're going to investigate, verify his story, figure out what's happening. But that night, he vanishes, gone from the locked room. No escape route, no way out. Window still locked, door still guarded. He's just gone. What happened? He crossed back. The weak spot that brought him here took him back. Or another weak spot opened. Or reality itself rejected him. He didn't belong in this dimension. His quantum signature didn't match his probability wave function, didn't align. So he was pulled back, returned to his origin, back to a dimension where Taured exists, where his documents make sense, where reality matches his memories, and all his documents vanished with him. Passport, licenses, everything, because those objects were tied to his quantum state, entangled with him. When he crossed, they crossed physical evidence of dimensional travel. Gone. Flight, 19th of December, 5th, 1945. This is more complex, because this wasn't one person. This was 14 men, 5 aircraft, all crossing together, or attempting to. Let me walk you through exactly what happened. Using the framework, with the science, Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station. 2:10 p.m., 5 Avenger torpedo bombers take off. Training flight, navigation exercise, routine. The flight plan is simple. East from Fort Lauderdale for 141 miles, north for 73 miles, then southwest back to base. Total time, about 2 hours. Should land around 4:15 p.m. clear weather. Experienced pilots. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous, just another training run. Lieutenant Charles Taylor is the flight leader, experienced. Over 2,500 flight hours, combat veteran. He knows what he's doing. The other pilots are students, but trained, competent, following procedures. The flight proceeds normally, east from Fort Lauderdale, out over the Atlantic. They reach their first waypoint, turn north, all normal, all according to plan. But then around 3:45 p.m., something changes. Taylor radios the base, says both his compasses are malfunctioning, spinning, not giving consistent readings. He can't navigate by instruments. He's relying on visual landmarks looking for the Florida Keys. should be visible, should be clear. But he can't see them, can't see land, can't see anything that makes sense. The ocean looks wrong. That's what he says. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. Think about that. An experienced pilot with 2,500 hours. Combat veteran. Saying the ocean looks wrong. What does that mean? What does wrong look like? In the dimensional crossing framework, it makes perfect sense. The flight passed through a weak spot. Somewhere over the Atlantic, the Bermuda Triangle area, strong geomagnetic anomalies, the Gulf Stream running below them, creating electromagnetic fields. And they crossed partially, not fully. They're between dimensions, existing in both, seeing both. Their reality is overlapping with another reality, and the ocean in that other reality looks different. Different color, maybe? Different wave patterns, different horizon. The brain can't process it, can't reconcile two versions of the ocean simultaneously. So it looks wrong, looks strange, looks impossible. Taylor can't trust what he's seeing, can't navigate by visual, can't trust instruments. He's lost, not because he doesn't know how to navigate, but because reality isn't stable, because he's seeing multiple realities at once. The other pilots report the same thing. Multiple voices on the radio. Everything looks strange. We don't know where we are. Can't see land. Can't see the keys. Can't see anything familiar. They're in dimensional overlap. The weak spot is mobile, or they're drifting deeper into it. The electromagnetic fields are strong, affecting their instruments, affecting their perception, affecting reality itself. Base tries to help, tries to guide them, sends radio signals they can track, but the pilots can't lock onto them, can't get consistent bearings. The radio signals are bending, crossing dimensional boundaries, coming from multiple locations simultaneously, from our dimension, from the other dimension, from the overlap zone impossible to navigate. Taylor makes a decision. Turn west, fly toward Florida, away from the Atlantic, should reach land, should see the coast. They fly west for over an hour. Fuel's getting low. They should see land by now, but they don't. They see ocean, nothing but ocean, because west in our dimension isn't west in the overlap. Directions don't align. Space isn't consistent. They're flying in circles without knowing it, or flying in a straight line that curves through dimensional space, arriving nowhere. The sun sets. It's dark. No visual reference, no instruments working, no navigation possible. And fuel is running out. Taylor's final transmission, around 7 p.m., we'll have to ditch at sea. We're going down. Then radio silence, nothing. The search begins immediately. Hundreds of ships, hundreds of aircraft. They search for days, for weeks, cover hundreds of thousands of square miles, and they find nothing. Not one piece of wreckage, not one life raft, not one body, not even an oil slick. 5 large aircraft, 14 men, should leave debris, should leave something, but there's nothing, because they didn't crash in our dimension. They crossed fully. When they ditched, they were in the overlap, and they went through, crossed to the other side. The aircraft went with them, the men went with them, everything went through, to another dimension, another reality, another version of the Atlantic. And we can't access it, can't see it, can't recover them. They're gone. But wait, there's more. The rescue plane, PBM Mariner. Lieutenant Harry Cohn, 13 crew, 6:20 p.m. They take off to search for Flight 19. Experienced crew. They know what they're doing. They know the area. They head east toward Flight 19's last known position. At 6:30 p.m., Cohn radios his position, 20 miles east of Fort Lauderdale, Everything normal. Continuing on course. That's the last anyone hears from them. They vanish. Radio silence, complete silence. The tower tries to raise them. No response. They're gone too. 13 more men. One more aircraft. Same area, same conditions, same weak spot. The SS Gaines Mill. Merchant ship. 20 miles from Cone's last position. At approximately 6:30 p.m., the crew sees an explosion, massive fireball in the sky, bright orange huge, like an aircraft exploding. They report it immediately. Coast Guard responds. Ships arrive at dawn, search the location, and find nothing. Zero debris. An aircraft explodes in midair, and there's no debris field? That's impossible. Explosions create debris, always. Pieces fall. Metal, seats, bodies, something. But there's nothing. Why? Because the explosion happened during dimensional crossing. The Mariner hit the weak spot. Same weak spot Flight 19 hit. But the Mariner's crossing was violent. The dimensional transition created an energy release, a flash, a visible event. Witnesses saw it as explosion. But it wasn't combustion. It was dimensional energy, reality tearing, space-time rupturing, the flash of crossing, and the debris went through with the aircraft, crossed to the other dimension, left nothing in ours. But here's what they didn't tell you. The crew of the Gaines Mill reported something else, something the Navy classified. Before the explosion, they saw lights, strange lights in the sky, multiple lights, moving in patterns, hovering, then accelerating, not like aircraft lights, not like anything normal, moving impossibly, defying physics. What were those lights? Manifestations of the weak spot, visual markers of dimensional boundary collapse. Places where realities overlap become visible. Energy bleeds through, creates light, creates phenomena. The crew saw the weak spot before the Mariner hit it, saw it active, saw it manifesting, then saw the crossing, the explosion, the dimensional transition, and the Navy documented all of it, then classified it, sealed it for 75 years. Why? Because it proved dimensional crossing is real, proved the weak spot exists, proved the Bermuda Triangle isn't a myth. It's a real location where reality breaks down. The Mary Celeste, December 4th, 1872, Mid-Atlantic. This is the historical case, the one that proves this has been happening for centuries. Before modern technology, before electromagnetic infrastructure, proving there are natural weak spots, not just man-made. The Mary Celeste is sailing from New York to Genoa. Cargo of denatured alcohol. Routine voyage. Captain Benjamin Briggs is experienced. His wife Sarah and 2-year-old daughter Sophia are aboard. The crew is 7 men, all experienced sailors, all professionals. The ship is sound, well-maintained, fully supplied, everything proper, everything safe. December 4th, the day Gratia spots her. Another ship. Captain Morehouse. He knows Briggs. They're friends. He recognizes the Mary Celeste, but something's wrong. She's sailing erratically, not holding course, sails partially set, nobody visible on deck. Morehouse sends a boarding party. They board the Mary Celeste and find her deserted, completely abandoned, nobody aboard. The ship is intact, no damage, no signs of struggle, no signs of violence. The cargo is secure, the supplies are intact. Food in the galley, partially eaten meals, personal belongings in the cabins, Captain Briggs's log on the desk, his pipe, his wife's jewelry. Everything a crew would need is there, everything valuable is there, but the people are gone. The ship's boat is missing, cut loose. The railing has marks like a rope was cut hastily. The lifeboat was taken. 10 people got into a small boat and left a perfectly good ship. Why? What would make an experienced captain put his 2-year-old daughter in a lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic. In the dimensional framework, it makes perfect sense. The Mary Celeste sailed into a weak spot. Natural weak spot. The mid-Atlantic has them. Underwater volcanic activity. The mid-Atlantic ridge. Tectonic spreading zone creates electromagnetic fields, geomagnetic anomalies. The area where Portuguese sailors reported the Mar Morto, the Dead Sea, where ships vanished for centuries. Captain Briggs didn't know about dimensional physics, didn't have that framework, but he experienced the effects. Reality started looking wrong. The ocean looked strange. Colors seemed off. The horizon looked bent. Instruments were acting strangely. The compass was spinning. The barometer was fluctuating. And worse, much worse, he started seeing things, or perceiving things. The dimensional overlap was affecting his perception. He might have seen another ship, a ghost ship, the Mary Celeste from another dimension sailing parallel. Or he might have seen something coming through, something from the other side, something impossible, something terrifying. Whatever he saw, whatever he perceived, it made staying on the ship seem dangerous, made the ship itself seem threatening. The same way the Dyatlov hikers thought their tent was dangerous, the same way Flight 19 couldn't trust their aircraft. The dimensional overlap creates fear, creates panic, makes safety seem like danger. So Briggs made the impossible choice, abandon ship. Get everyone into the lifeboat, cut the rope. Get away from the Mary Celeste, get distance, because the ship was in the weak spot, and being on the ship meant being in the overlap, and the overlap was terrifying, unbearable, impossible to tolerate, so they left, all 10 of them, into a small boat, in the middle of the Atlantic, choosing certain death over staying on a ship that seemed wrong. What happened to them? They died. Almost certainly. 10 people in a small boat in the Atlantic in December? Impossible odds. They probably lasted a day, maybe 2. Hypothermia exposure, starvation, dehydration. They died. But maybe some of them crossed through. Maybe the weak spot extended beyond the ship. Maybe they were still in the overlap, and as they died, as their consciousness faded, they crossed, went to another dimension, where maybe they survived, where maybe the Atlantic was calmer, where maybe they reached land. Probably not. Probably they just died. But maybe the framework allows it, the physics permits it, and it's a better ending than drowning in the cold Atlantic. The Mary Celeste herself, she drifted out of the weak spot, back into stable reality, empty, abandoned, found by the De Grazia, salvaged, brought to port. The investigation found nothing. No explanation, no evidence of foul play, no reason to abandon, just a perfectly good ship with nobody aboard. Because the reason was dimensional, outside their framework, outside their understanding. So they called it mystery, unsolved, impossible. And it stayed that way for 150 years. Until now. Until you understand what really happened. Dyatlov Pass, February 1st, 1959. This is the most documented case, the most evidence, the most witnesses, and the most disturbing, because this one has bodies. Physical evidence autopsy reports, and the evidence proves dimensional crossing can be violent, can be deadly, can leave marks. 9 expert hikers. Ural Mountains. Category 3, trek, highest difficulty. They're prepared, they're experienced. They camp on Kholat Shachel, Dead Mountain. The Mansi warned them, told them not to camp there, told them strange things happen. They didn't listen. They camped anyway. And that night, something happened, something that made all 9 of them cut through their tent from the inside, not through the entrance, through the canvas, with knives, multiple cuts, methodical cuts, not frantic, not panicked, deliberate, like they were letting people out one by one, while something was happening outside or inside or both. Then they ran, barefoot, in underwear, some in light clothes, into negative 22 degrees, into a blizzard, into guaranteed death. They knew this meant death. Every single one of them knew. They were experts. They understood cold better than almost anyone, and they ran anyway. Why? What did they see? What did they experience? In the dimensional framework, the answer is clear. They camped on a weak spot. Dead Mountain isn't called that because of one incident. It's called that because of centuries of incidents. The Mansi know. They've seen, they've lost people there for generations. It's a natural weak spot, geomagnetic anomalies, magnetic ores in the mountains, tectonic stress. And that night, it activated. 3 other hiking groups reported orange lights in the sky, 50 miles away. All 3 groups, independent witnesses, all documented, all classified. Those orange lights, those are manifestations, visual markers of the weak spot activating, energy bleeding through dimensional boundaries, creating visible phenomena. The Dyatlov group was closest, camped right under it, and when it activated, they experienced the full effect. Reality overlapped. They saw through to another dimension, and what they saw terrified them. Maybe they saw themselves, dead versions of themselves from another timeline. Maybe they saw something coming through, something from the other side, something impossible, something that doesn't exist in our dimension. Whatever it was, it made the tent seem dangerous, made staying seem like death, made running seem like survival. So they cut through, got out, ran, trying to escape, trying to get away, trying to reach safety. But some of them didn't make it. Some of them crossed through. The ones in the ravine, found under 13 feet of snow, with impossible injuries, crushed ribs, force equivalent to car crashes, but no external wounds. How? How do you get that kind of internal trauma with 0 external damage? In the dimensional crossing framework, it's simple. They crossed partially. Their bodies entered dimensional overlap, and space-time compressed around them. Uniform pressure from all directions, not impact, not collision, compression. Reality squeezing them as they move between dimensions. The dimensional boundary has energy, has pressure, has resistance. Crossing through it is like passing through a membrane, a barrier. And if you get stuck halfway, if you don't complete the crossing, the pressure crushes you from all sides simultaneously. Symmetrical damage. Both sides of the chest, both sides of the body, equal force, equal pressure. That's not a fall. That's not an impact. That's dimensional compression. And Lyudmila Dubinina, missing her tongue, missing her eyes, not torn, not bitten, removed, cleanly, under 13 feet of snow. No animal could do that. No scavenger could reach her, but dimensional crossing could. Soft tissue is less stable than hard tissue. More water, more flexible, more susceptible to quantum effects. When she was in the overlap, when she was partially crossed, the soft tissue might have phased differently, might have crossed while the hard tissue stayed, or might have been stripped by the dimensional pressure, torn away at the molecular level, not by teeth, not by claws, by reality itself, by the forces at dimensional boundaries. It's gruesome, it's horrifying, but it's consistent with the physics, consistent with what happens when biology crosses dimensions. The radiation on their clothing, measurable, above background, documented. Where did it come from? Dimensional crossing releases energy. Exotic particles, gamma rays maybe, or particles we don't have names for. Particles that exist at dimensional boundaries. When the weak spot activated, when reality overlapped, those particles were released, contaminated the clothing, left measurable evidence, physical proof that something unusual happened, something outside normal physics. The Soviet government measured it, documented it, then classified it, because it proved something, proved the impossible happened, proved dimensional phenomena are real. The footprints walking a mile, bare feet in negative 22 degrees, should freeze solid in under 60 seconds. Tissue should crystallize, should be unable to move, but the prints go on for a mile. How? Because time perception is different in dimensional overlap. What felt like seconds to them might have been minutes in our timeline, or their bodies were partially phased. Partially in another dimension where temperature was different, where physics was different, where bare feet on snow didn't cause instant frostbite. They were walking between realities, between dimensions, and the rules weren't consistent, weren't stable, weren't the same as normal reality. The Soviet government investigated thoroughly, documented everything, and concluded death by unknown compelling force, not avalanche, not animals, not hypothermia, not fighting unknown compelling force. That's admission. That's saying we don't know, or can't say, or won't say, and then they sealed it, classified it, restricted access to the area. Why? What were they hiding? Maybe nothing. Maybe they genuinely didn't know, or maybe they knew exactly what happened. Maybe the military was testing something. Maybe those orange lights were weapons tests. Maybe they were creating artificial weak spots. Intentional dimensional collapse, testing what happens. And the Dyatlov group was in the wrong place, became test subjects, became casualties. And the government covered it up, called it unknown, sealed the files, moved on. D.B. Cooper. November 24th, 1971. Thanksgiving Eve. This is the modern case, the one with witnesses, with FBI investigation, with physical evidence, and with the most lingering questions. Because the scenario makes no sense unless you understand dimensional crossing. A man hijacks a plane, gets $200,000 in marked bills, gets 4 parachutes, then jumps from 10,000 feet at night, in freezing rain, in a storm, over mountains, wearing a business suit and loafers. The FBI calculated survival odds at 0. Experts said it's impossible, but he did it anyway. Why? What's the point? If you're going to die, why hijack the plane? Why take the money? Unless jumping wasn't about survival, unless it was about something else. The Pacific Northwest has weak spots, natural weak spots, volcanic activity, Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, the Cascade Range, geothermal energy, electromagnetic fields, fault lines, tectonic stress, and military activity, radar installations, communication arrays, all creating electromagnetic infrastructure, all generating fields. The area where Cooper jumped is active, dimensionally active. And on that night, in that storm, the conditions were perfect. Strong electromagnetic activity from the storm. Lightning generates massive pulses, affects quantum fields, affects dimensional boundaries, the rain, the wind, the turbulence, all creating energy, all creating stress on reality. Cooper jumped at 8:13 p.m. into darkness, into storm, into the overlap. And the moment he left the plane, reality shifted. He entered a weak spot, mobile weak spot, created by the storm, by the electromagnetic conditions. And he crossed, not intentionally, not knowing, but crossed. The dimensional boundary collapsed around him, and he went through. His body, his parachute, his money, all crossed to another dimension, another reality, another version of the Pacific Northwest, and that's why they never found him. Why 50 years of searching found nothing, because he's not in our dimension. He's not in Washington Forest. He's somewhere else. Alive or dead, we don't know, but gone from here, crossed over. The $5,800 found 9 years later, on the Columbia Riverbank, rotting, buried in sand. How did it get there? It was at the boundary, at the edge of the weak spot, where dimensions touch, where overlap occurs. And over time, with water movement, with geological shifts, with quantum fluctuations, it leaked back, crossed from there to here, partially. Just the bills, not the man, not the parachute, just some of the money. Physical evidence of dimensional crossing, proof that objects can move between realities, under the right conditions, in the right locations, at the right times. The FBI investigated for decades, searched everywhere, found almost nothing. Closed the case in 2016, unsolved, the only unsolved hijacking in American history, because the solution is outside their framework. Outside normal investigation, you can't solve dimensional crossing with standard detective work. You need physics. You need quantum mechanics. You need understanding of reality at fundamental levels. And in 1971, that understanding didn't exist, not publicly. Maybe the military knew, maybe classified programs understood, but the FBI didn't. So they searched, found nothing, called it mystery, moved on. But it's still happening right now, today. People are still vanishing. Weak spots are still active. Let me show you modern cases. Cases that prove this isn't historical, this is current, this is ongoing. March 8, 2014. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, Boeing 777, 239 people aboard. Modern aircraft, satellite tracking, radar coverage, redundant communication systems, multiple backups, everything monitored, everything tracked, everything recorded. The flight takes off from Kuala Lumpur, headed to Beijing. Routine flight. Experienced crew. Clear weather. Nothing unusual. 40 minutes into the flight, over the South China Sea, radar contact is lost. The transponder stops transmitting communication, goes silent. The aircraft vanishes, completely gone. Satellite data suggests it turned south, flew for hours, over the Indian Ocean, then presumably ran out of fuel, crashed. But where? Nobody knows. They searched for years, the largest search in aviation history, multiple countries, hundreds of ships, aircraft, submarines. They searched millions of square miles of ocean and found almost nothing. A few pieces of debris, wing fragments, confirmed to be from MH370, washed up on shores. But that's it. That's all. No fuselage, no engines, no bodies, no main wreckage. Where is it? How does a Boeing 777 vanish in 2014? With satellite tracking, with global radar coverage? How? The official explanation. The pilot did it. Deliberate act. Flew the plane into the ocean. Suicide, mass murder. But why? No motive found, no psychological indicators, no evidence of planning, just assumption. Because they can't find the plane, can't explain the disappearance. So they blame the pilot. Case closed. But in the dimensional framework, MH370 makes perfect sense. The South China Sea has weak spots. The area is tectonically active. Volcanic activity. Geomagnetic anomalies. Heavy electromagnetic traffic. ships, aircraft, communications, all creating fields, all generating interference. MH370 flew into a weak spot. Probably without knowing, the crew wouldn't have perceived it immediately, but the instruments would. Transponder stops working. Communication systems fail. Radar reflection changes. The aircraft becomes invisible, not because it's destroyed, because it's phasing, crossing, existing between dimensions. The satellite data showing it turned south? That's the aircraft in dimensional overlap, following a path that doesn't make sense in normal space. Because it's not in normal space anymore. It's in transitional space between realities. And eventually, it completed the crossing, went through, vanished from our dimension, appeared in another, where it might have crashed, or might have landed, or might still be flying. We don't know. We can't know, because we can't access that dimension, can't observe it, can't retrieve it. June 2017, USS Fitzgerald, Navy destroyer, collides with merchant ship off coast of Japan. 7 sailors die. Below deck, in berthing compartments. Flooded compartments. They die by drowning. But here's what's strange. The collision happened above the waterline. The damaged area was above sea level. The berthing compartments shouldn't have flooded, shouldn't have had water. But they did. Investigators are confused. How did water get into those compartments? The bulkheads were intact. The hull below the waterline was undamaged. Where did the water come from? In the dimensional framework, it makes sense. Japan has weak spots. Ring of fire, volcanic activity, tectonic stress, and the USS Fitzgerald has massive electromagnetic systems, radar, sonar, communications, weapons systems, all creating fields. The collision created stress, sudden stress, energy release, and a weak spot opened. Briefly, in those compartments, water from another dimension bled through. Just water. Just that. Not the whole ship. Not the crew. Just water. Dimensional leakage. The sailors drowned in water that shouldn't have been there because it came from somewhere else. From another reality where those compartments were flooded. The overlap lasted seconds, maybe minutes, just long enough to be lethal. Comment right now if modern disappearances following the same pattern proves this is real and ongoing. Because they do. And there are more. So what do you do with this information? How do you live knowing dimensional weak spots exist? Knowing crossing is possible? Knowing people vanish? Knowing reality isn't stable? First, you pay attention. You watch for the signs. Learn to recognize weak spots. Learn to identify when reality is becoming unstable. The signs are consistent. Instruments start malfunctioning. Compasses spin. Electronics fail intermittently. GPS gives wrong readings. Radio has static, unusual static, not normal interference, strange static. With patterns, with rhythms, visual distortions. Things look wrong. Colors seem off. Perspective seems bent. Horizon looks curved when it should be straight, or straight when it should be curved. You can't judge distance properly, can't judge scale. Everything looks flat, or everything looks 2-3-dimensional. Your depth perception is off. Physical sensations. You feel dizzy, disoriented, nauseous, not like motion sickness. Different. Like your inner ear's confused, like gravity is inconsistent, like space itself is wrong. You feel pressure, not air pressure, something else, something deeper, like reality is pressing against you, temporal distortions. Time feels wrong, seconds feel like minutes, or minutes feel like seconds. You look at your watch and the time doesn't make sense, doesn't match your perception, doesn't match what should have elapsed. And worst of all, psychological effects. Fear, irrational fear, not fear of something specific. Fear of everything, fear of the location, fear of the situation, fear of staying where you are, the urge to leave, to run, to escape, even though logically you're safe, even though rationally leaving is more dangerous. The fear is overwhelming, compelling, impossible to ignore. If you experience these signs, if you recognize these symptoms, you leave immediately. No investigation, no curiosity, no staying to see what happens. You get out. You return to stable reality. You move away from the weak spot. You increase distance. And usually that works. Usually weak spots are localized, small, maybe a few hundred meters, maybe a few kilometers. You can escape. You can get out. Unless you're in a vehicle, unless you're in an aircraft, unless you're on a ship, then you might not have the option. Then you might be stuck, and then you might cross, might vanish, might become another unsolved disappearance, another mystery, another case in the pattern. Second, you avoid known weak spots. Now that you know the pattern, now that you understand the locations, you can avoid them. The Bermuda Triangle. Fly around it if possible. If you must cross it, fly high, above 20,000 feet if possible. Stay in commercial aircraft with strong electromagnetic shielding. Don't fly small planes there. Don't sail small boats there. If you must, do it during calm conditions. Clear weather, minimal electromagnetic activity, lower risk, not zero risk, but lower. The Pacific Northwest. Be careful in the Cascades, in the mountains, during storms, during high electromagnetic activity. If you're hiking, camping, flying there, pay attention. Watch for the signs. Be ready to leave the mid-Atlantic. This is harder to avoid. But be aware. If you're sailing, if you're on a ship, know the risk areas. Know where Portuguese sailors feared, where historical disappearances cluster, and be prepared. Japan, Ring of Fire, tectonic activity everywhere. Weak spots are common, but usually small, usually brief, usually harmless. But not always. Pay attention to warnings, to local knowledge, to historical patterns. The Ural Mountains, Dead Mountains specifically. Don't camp there. Just don't. The Mansi know. They've always known. Listen to them. Respect their knowledge. Their warnings come from centuries of experience, centuries of loss. They're not superstition. They're survival knowledge. And globally, be aware new weak spots can form. Technology creates them. Strong electromagnetic fields create conditions. Power lines, transformers, radio towers, radar installations, military equipment, particle accelerators, all of these generate fields, strong fields. And concentrated fields can create weak spots, artificial weak spots. Temporary, usually, but dangerous. Pay attention near these installations, near these facilities, and if you experience the signs, leave. Third, you prepare. If you might encounter weak spots, if your work or travel takes you to risk areas, prepare. Carry redundant navigation equipment, multiple compasses, multiple GPS units, multiple methods of determining location. So, if one fails, you have backups. Carry communication equipment, multiple radios, multiple methods of calling for help. So, if one system fails, you have others. Document everything, take notes, record observations. If you experience anomalies, if you notice distortions, document them. Write them down, record them. So if you cross, if you vanish, maybe the documentation survives. Maybe it helps the next person. Maybe it adds to the evidence. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If your gut says leave, leave. Don't ignore that. Don't rationalize it away. Your subconscious might be perceiving things your conscious mind doesn't recognize. might be detecting quantum fluctuations, might be sensing dimensional instability. Trust it. Act on it. Survive. Let me tell you what this means, what it really means for humanity, for science, for reality itself. If dimensional weak spots are real, if crossing is possible, then everything changes. Physics changes. Our understanding of space-time changes. Our understanding of reality changes. The implications are profound, infinite, life-changing. Multiple realities exist. Parallel dimensions are real. Every decision creates branches. Every quantum event creates new timelines. And we exist in all of them. Different versions of us, living different lives, making different choices, and sometimes, rarely, we can perceive them, can see through to the other branches, can see our other selves, our other lives, our other choices, and sometimes we can cross, can move between them, can change realities. That's what these cases show. That's what the evidence proves. Death might not be final. If consciousness can cross dimensions, if awareness can transition between realities, then maybe death in one dimension doesn't mean death in all dimensions. Maybe when you die here, you continue there, in another branch, another timeline, another version of reality where you didn't die, where you made a different choice, where the outcome was different. That's the many worlds interpretation taken to its conclusion. That's immortality through quantum branching. Every time you face death, you continue in the timelines where you survive. Your consciousness follows the surviving branches, always, forever. You're immortal from your own perspective, because you only experience the timelines where you're alive to experience them. The timelines where you die, you don't experience those, they end, but you continue in the others, in the infinite branches where you survive. That's controversial, that's speculative, but it's consistent with the physics, consistent with many worlds, consistent with quantum immortality theory, and if it's true, if consciousness does follow surviving branches, then everyone who vanished in these cases isn't dead. They're alive in other dimensions, in other realities, in the branches where they crossed successfully, where they survived, where they're still living. We can't contact them, can't confirm it, can't verify it, but it's possible. The physics allows it, the framework permits it, and it's a better answer than oblivion. Better than saying they're just gone, just cease to exist. Better to think they're alive somewhere, still experiencing, still conscious, still existing, just not here, not in our branch, not in our reality. And if we can cross, if we can move between dimensions, then we can explore, can discover, can learn, can access infinite realities, infinite versions of Earth, infinite timelines. Imagine that. Imagine being able to visit timelines where history went differently, where Rome never fell, where the Americas were never colonized, where world wars never happened, where technology advanced differently, where society evolved differently, where you made different choices, infinite possibilities, infinite realities, all accessible, all explorable. If we understand the physics, if we can control the crossing, if we can navigate dimensional space intentionally. That's what the Philadelphia experiment was trying to do. That's what the Navy discovered accidentally. That's what they've been studying in classified programs for 80 years. How to cross intentionally, how to navigate dimensional space, how to access other realities. And if they've succeeded, if they can do it, then the implications are staggering. Military applications are obvious. Imagine being able to teleport troops, teleport weapons, teleport supplies, not through normal space, through dimensional space, appearing anywhere, instantly. Imagine being able to access resources from other dimensions, other timelines, infinite resources, infinite energy, infinite materials. Imagine being able to escape disasters, pandemics, wars, climate change by crossing to dimensions where those things didn't happen, where Earth is pristine, where humanity flourished, where we're safe. But the risks are enormous, catastrophic. If dimensional barriers can be crossed, they can be broken. If weak spots can be created, they can be enlarged. If reality can be accessed, it can be damaged. Imagine creating a weak spot that doesn't close, a permanent tear in dimensional boundaries, a hole in reality. Things could come through, things from other dimensions, things that don't belong here, things that don't follow our physics, our biology, our logic. And once they're here, they can't be sent back, can't be contained, can't be controlled. That's the risk. That's what keeps me up at night. The thought that someone, somewhere, military or civilian, government or private, might create a permanent rift, might break reality trying to control it, might doom us all in the pursuit of knowledge or power or profit. So here's the truth, the complete truth. Based on everything I've researched, everything I've studied, everything I've analyzed, dimensional weak spots are real. They exist naturally in specific locations with specific characteristics, geomagnetic anomalies, electromagnetic fields, tectonic stress, energy flows. These create conditions where dimensional boundaries thin, where reality becomes permeable, where crossing becomes possible. People have been encountering these weak spots for centuries, for millennia. Since humanity began exploring, since we started traveling, since we ventured into unknown areas, and some people cross accidentally. Without knowing, without understanding, they vanish, they disappear, they're gone, and we call it mystery, call it unexplained, call it paranormal. But it's not. It's physics. It's quantum mechanics. It's dimensional science. The evidence is overwhelming. 6 cases across a century, hundreds of cases across history, thousands if you include folklore and legend and historical accounts, all following the same pattern, all showing the same signs, all ending the same way. People vanish without trace. Reality breaks down. Impossible things happen, and we can't explain it within normal frameworks. Can't solve it with conventional thinking, but with dimensional theory, with quantum physics, with many worlds interpretation, it all makes sense, all fits together, all explains itself. The man from Taured, dimensional visitor, crossed from a reality where Taured exists. Flight 19 and the rescue plane, dimensional crossing during attempt to navigate weak spot, 40 men gone, Mary Celeste. Captain saw dimensional overlap, made impossible choice. Crew died trying to escape. Dyatlov Pass, weak spot activated. 9 hikers experienced full dimensional pressure. Some died. Some might have crossed. D.B. Cooper jumped into weak spot during storm. Crossed accidentally. Gone. Bermuda Triangle, permanent weak spot. Centuries of disappearances, all dimensional, all explained. The physics supports it. Many worlds interpretation, dimensional theory, quantum mechanics. The math works. The predictions match observations. The theory explains what conventional frameworks cannot. The military knows, has known since 1943. Philadelphia experiment, Project Rainbow. They discovered it accidentally. Been studying it ever since. Classified programs, secret research, trying to control it, trying to weaponize it, trying to navigate dimensional space intentionally. And maybe they've succeeded. Maybe they can do it now. Maybe that's what the lights are, the orange spheres, the strange phenomena. Maybe that's military craft, dimensional vehicles, crossing intentionally, testing, experimenting, operating. We don't know, can't know. It's classified, it's secret, it's beyond public knowledge. But the evidence is public. The cases are documented. The patterns are clear. And now you know. Now you understand. Now you see what's really happening. What's been happening for centuries, what will continue happening. Until we master it. Until we understand it completely. Until we can navigate dimensional space safely. Or until we destroy reality trying. Subscribe if this series changed how you see the world. Because it should have. Because reality is not what you thought. Not solid, not stable, not singular. Reality is multiple. Reality is permeable. Reality is navigable. And the impossible is real. The evidence proves it. The physics supports it. The patterns show it. And you can't unsee it, can't unknown it, can't go back to thinking reality is simple. Because it's not. It's complex, it's layered, it's dimensional. And once you understand that, everything changes. Drop a comment right now saying, I see the pattern, if you made it this far. If you watched all 7 days, if you understand now, if you see what I've shown you, let me know you were here. Let me know this mattered. Let me know you get it. Because this is important, this is real, this is happening, and people need to know. People need to understand. People need to see the pattern before they become part of it. Before they vanish, before they cross, before they're gone. Thank you for watching this series. Thank you for staying with me through 7 days of impossible cases, 7 days of evidence, 7 days of pattern recognition. Thank you for thinking critically, for questioning, for engaging, for being open to possibilities outside conventional thinking. This has been the most important series I've ever made, the most researched, the most documented, the most real, and I hope it's changed you, changed how you see reality, changed how you understand the world, changed how you think about the impossible. If you want more content like this, more investigations into dimensional phenomena, more explorations of reality-breaking events, more pattern analysis, let me know. Tell me in the comments. Tell me what you want to see next. Tell me what mysteries need investigating. Tell me what patterns need exposing, because there's more, so much more. More cases, more evidence, more patterns, more proof that reality is stranger than anyone imagines. And I'm going to find it, document it, show you. If you want to see it, if you're ready for it, if you can handle the truth. The pattern is real. The evidence is documented. The physics supports it. Dimensional weak spots exist. People cross between realities. The impossible happens regularly, predictably, in specific locations. And it's still happening right now, today, tomorrow, forever, until we understand it completely, until we master dimensional navigation, until we control reality itself, or until reality breaks trying. Welcome to the other side of understanding. Welcome to seeing what most people miss. Welcome to knowing the truth. The world just got infinitely stranger and infinitely more interesting, and you're never going back to simple thinking, never going back to conventional reality, never going back to believing the impossible doesn't exist. Because you've seen the evidence, you've seen the pattern, you've seen the truth, and once you see it, you can't unsee it, ever. This is day 7. This is the answer. This is the truth. The pattern is real. The impossible is real. Dimensional crossing is real. And reality will never look the same again.